Yes, I mean, as I said, I just got a bit fed up with people saying the big banks aren't changing and that they're stupid, slow, and old, when none of them are stupid. They are slow and old. Um, but the reason they're slow and old is that you're talking about companies with tens of thousands of people that have been building their structures over centuries that have to suddenly turn around. And you can't transform a company quickly. Um, Now, some people think the traditional banks won't change quickly, and by the time they have, it'll be too late. I would say, with the regulatory structures of finance that many of us are familiar with, the banks do have time to turn around, but some won't. I mean, some are being too slow, but they're not going to be disappearing. They're going to be acquired by the banks that are turning around effectively. And the banks that are turning around effectively will take their customers and their capital and their market share. Uh, and that's been the way it's been for a long time. You know, I don't think a fintech company will destroy a bank. I think instead they'll harmonize with the banks and create new structures together. Not exactly. It began with that I wanted to get banks that were in the top 50 by market capitalization. So I started with a list of the top 50 banks in the world. But I already had a few in my head that I felt were appropriate. So BBVA, because they've been doing digital change for 20 years and are very outspoken about digital leadership. ING, because they had ING Direct in the marketplace for over a decade and understand doing banking without branches. DBS, because DBS gets all these awards for being the best digital bank in the world. China Merchants Bank, because actually conversed to DBS, and many of my Asian friends said you should go and look at China Merchants Bank rather than DBS because they are really doing digital in an amazingly strong way. And JP Morgan Chase, because every day I was getting announcements about what they were doing with their technology investments. They were the five that stood out. I had another sort of 5, 10 on the list. But if I'm honest, these were the five that were the ones that were my top of mind. And so I was delighted they all, you know, opened their doors to me and invited me in. Absolutely. I mean, the banks that I just outlined range from 25,000 to 250,000 employees. But equally, one of the key things about what I'm sharing here and in the new book is that I've been doing a lot of work in this area for all of my life. I've always been involved in technology and finance. I've always been involved in doing big change projects. I've been involved specifically in doing business transformation and business reengineering and business process management all of my life. And I think what I'm bringing together in the new book is all of my experiences with all of theirs. So there's some really good, clear-cut things that they're saying you have to bear in mind. But you know, a lot of what's being advocated by what I'm outlining in the book is just good, common sense business management, which many of us may take for granted. Many of us think that we know this, but there's always something you can learn. There's always something new. And so hopefully the book will share some things that you didn't know, as well as some things you go, well, that's blindingly obvious, but it's nice to see it made clear. There are, in particular, there's actually a segment in the book that talks about partnering with big banks. And partnerships are very difficult because the big banks think that they hold all the cards. They have the customers, the capital, the history, the brand, the trust, um, and the government behind them, which makes it quite difficult to get a large bank to show its humility and to be open to a startup that's got no history and no brand and no trust to work in a equal partnership, because a partnership has to be equal. One partner can't be more equal than the other one. If you put it in context of your own relationships, if you are in a relationship with another person, if you feel that you're more important than the other person, that's not a partnership, that's not a relationship. That's you being an arrogant idiot. So you have to bring it to the level of saying it has to be an equitable partnership. And that's very difficult for a bank culturally to understand. But equally, it can be difficult for a fintech company to understand, because a fintech company often is saying, you're a big, horrible old bank that I don't like, and I'm going to attack you. And then they have to learn, there's centuries of history here that has created this structure of finance that you can't just destroy in a few weeks with a bit of code. You have to learn why it works that way and then try and partner again in an equitable way with the bank. So it's a very difficult thing to do, to be honest, Makoto, because as I say, this relationship equality is very difficult to achieve between a large traditional financial firm and a new challenging startup firm. But I have seen it working. And the main way in which I've seen it working, where it's been successful, is with banks that understand innovation and process. So a good example is BBVA, where they have actually 7 sections to partner. It starts with exploration and discovery, finding firms they might see of interest, through to working out, is that company of interest one that we should be working with as a partner, or investing in, or acquiring, or copying? What's the relationship we need to have with them? And if the relationship is partnering, then we have to make sure that the partnership engagement is equitable and not arrogant. Well, I've been a big advocate of globalization and global connectivity and the way in which the internet brings us together. And because it brings us together, we get digital relationships that become physical relationships. So unusually, I think I actually met you physically before I met you digitally. But a lot of people I know today are friends that I've never met. I've met them via Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, WeChat. And that's a world that's connecting everybody, which is the focus of my last book, Digital Human. I think what coronavirus is going to do for the future is a number of things. One is, as I say, we're going to have far more working from home. I think the office environment was already on the way out, but I think it will be phased out faster than it maybe would have been. I saw a statistic from an American survey saying that 56% of US financial services employees have never worked from home. So this is going to be a cultural shock for a lot of people. But if you have 3 months of working from home and you're effective and productive, then why would you go back to being in a big office with everyone? I think it'll be far more flexible. The use of digital, social, and productivity tools will become normalized. So already we're seeing Microsoft Teams and Google Hangouts and Slack and other collaborative services becoming a regime that new companies use, but we'll see that being used by old companies. That's quite interesting that a lot of the fintech community use these tools from day one. Financial institutions are going to have to learn how to use them effectively as well. We're going to see a big move away from physical exchange of value to digital exchange of value. As I referenced, we're already seeing a lot of people saying cash has to disappear because it's dirty. Coronavirus has carried on banknotes for up to 10 days. People will no longer want to use cash. But equally, using a PIN pad or using a card as a token will become something that people don't want to do anymore. So digital exchange, digital structure, finance will be speeded in the next few years, far more than we ever expected or saw before.